The spotlight in Washington today was once again on President Biden's pick to join the Supreme Court. As John Yang reports, Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson faced hours of questioning from the Senate committee looking into her record.
This meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee will come to order.
Senate Judiciary Committee Republicans sought to build a case today that Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson is unfit for the high court. Armed with a stack of books, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, a former and likely future presidential candidate, said the Washington, D.C. private school on whose board Jackson sits promotes critical race theory, a hot-button issue for conservatives.
Is critical race theory taught in schools? Is it taught kindergarten through 12th?
Senator, I don't know. I don't think so. I believe it's an academic theory that's at the law school level.
I find that statement a little hard to reconcile with the public record, because if you look at the Georgetown Day School's curriculum, it is filled and overflowing with critical race theory.
I understood you to be addressing public schools. Georgetown Day School, just like the religious school that Justice Barrett was on the board of, is a private school.
Okay, so you agree critical race theory is taught at Georgetown Day School?
I don't know, because the board is not, the board does not control the curriculum. The board does not focus on that. That's not what we do as board members, so I'm actually not sure.
Jackson defended her judicial record and said she rules with neutrality.
I am acutely aware that as a judge in our system, I have limited power, and I am trying in every case to stay in my lane.
Responses to a number of the questions.
Republicans, like Texas Senator John Cornyn, pushed back.
But where you've deferred answering, saying you want to stay in your lane and not be seen as a policymaker, would you agree with me that one of the most important questions under our constitutional form of government and the separation of powers is who decides?
Jackson said being a federal public defender and a trial judge had helped shape her work.
I think that experience in the criminal justice system, whether, as you say, on the prosecution side or the defense side, having actual experience is an asset as a judge. You understand the way the system works, and as a defense counsel, you have interacted with defendants in a way that, as a judge, at least as a trial judge, I thought was very beneficial.
The largest law enforcement
Senate Democrats used their questioning to help Jackson blunt Republican attacks.
What do you say to people who say you're soft on crime or even anti-law enforcement because you accepted your duties as a public defender?
As someone who has had family members on patrol and in the line of fire, I care deeply about public safety. I know what it's like to have loved ones who go off to protect and to serve, and the fear of not knowing whether or not they're going to come home again because of crime in the community.
Committee Chairman Dick Durbin of Illinois gave Jackson a chance to respond to the charge from Senator Josh Hawley, another potential Republican presidential candidate, that as a trial judge, she let child pornography offenders off the hook.
Could you tell us what was going through your mind at that point?
As a mother and a judge who has had to deal with these cases, I was thinking that nothing could be further from the truth. In every case, when I am dealing with something like this, it is important to me to make sure that the children's perspective, the children's voices are represented in my sentencings. These people are looking at 20, 30, 40 years of supervision. They can't use their computers in a normal way for decades. I am imposing all of those constraints because I understand how significant, how damaging, how horrible this crime is.
Jackson also sought to deflect Republican criticisms of her past representation of 4 Guantanamo Bay detainees.
Federal public defenders don't get to pick their clients. They have to represent whoever comes in, and it's a service. That's what you do as a federal public defender. You are standing up for the constitutional value of representation.
Tomorrow, another long day of questioning. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm John Yang.
And here to unpack developments at today's hearing are congressional correspondent Lisa Desjardins and our legal analyst Marcia Coyle of the National Law Journal. Hello to both of you. It has been a long day. It continues into the night. Lisa, this day has been marked by a number of civil exchanges with Judge Jackson, but also by some accusatory, even angry rounds of questioning from some of the Republican senators. Is it a surprise among the senators and people you're talking to that we're seeing so much focus around child pornography and her views on race history?
I believe some of the Republicans, especially those leading these questions, they're not surprised. This was part of their game plan coming into this hearing. This is what they wanted to ask about. But I think for Democrats and for some Republicans who've been around here longer, who have want to talk about things like judicial philosophy, which we did hear a fascinating debate about, they, I think, are surprised that this has been suddenly a headline of this hearing, that it did get so contentious, and that there were so many repeated questions along the same lines, not just questions, but accusations. I just came from talking to Senator Hawley about his questioning of Judge Jackson, and I asked him, do you not allow for the possibility that she was in line with probationary officers' recommendations, if not prosecutors, which is his charge? And he said, well, I haven't seen those probationary recommendations, and the prosecutors are the ones that matter. Then I said, well, what about the data that shows she was, in fact, in line with federal judges across the country at the time, including judges in Missouri? And he told me he has not seen that data. But that's an important point. Where was she relative to the rest of the country? And moreover, I asked him, what do you think this tells you about her as a Supreme Court nominee? He says he thinks she was just too lenient in this category. But it is just one category of her long jurisprudence. It definitely changed the flavor of the day, Judy.
Yes, it one category, but a lot of time spent on that. Marcia, what's your assessment of how Judge Jackson handled these contentious, accusatory exchanges and what it says about her overall qualifications?
I think she handled them very patiently because she had to respond several times to the child pornography accusation that she's too lenient in that area. I think she gave as much as she could give on certain things. I know Senator Cornyn pressed her on same-sex marriage and how the right can conflict with religious beliefs, and his concern about those who express religious beliefs being vilified if they oppose same-sex marriage. And her answer was, I understand that concern. And that was as far as she would go and as far as she can go if he was hoping that she could say something about the constitutional right being wrong. She was not going to say that. So very patient. There was that one moment where I think I saw a discernible sigh when she was dealing with Senator Cruz and his questions about critical race theory, sort of implying that she was a proponent of books and writings that portrayed children as racist, babies as racist. So I think overall, long day for her, lots of questions, well over 100, and yet patience.
And Lisa, I know you're talking to people all day long on the Hill, picking up any sense of that something could derail this? Because going in, the sense was she probably was going to be confirmed.
No, I'll tell you, an office that actually opposes her nomination said, no, we don't think that she's being derailed. And I can also back Marcia up. Our question count right now, listen to this, 263 questions for this woman today so far.
So nothing. So Marcia, as we think about tomorrow, another round of questions, what more do you think we're going to hear? We could hear.
Yeah, I think one area that I think the Republicans want to ask has to do with her recusal, stepping aside, why she steps aside from certain cases, because they're very focused on next Supreme Court term when the court considers an affirmative action case involving Harvard and her relationship with Harvard and whether she would step aside from that case. Also, I think we're going to hear more about other types of opinions that she's written, environment, labor, maybe some political ones involving the Trump administration as well.
200 plus questions to go, as Lisa just said, and many more to go. Marcia Coyle, Lisa Desjardins, thank you both.
Welcome, Judy.